Welcome back to another Post-Media Ottawa Senators panel. I'm Bruce Garrioch with Ken Warren, and we're pleased to be joined today by Sportsnet Kyle Bukauskus. And guys, let's start with the trade of Christian Wolanin to the Los Angeles Kings on Monday night. Wolanin cleared waivers on Fridays, but often in these situations, Kyle, that sparks trade talks, and it was pretty obvious that getting Michael Amadio back, the Kings wanted a contract off their books as well.
Yeah, it just seems like the world we live in right now, isn't it, Bruce? It's money in, money out for a lot of teams, and certainly the contracts as well. And it was just clear that, Christian Wolanin had lost the trust of the coaching staff. I mean, you look at the last game he played for the Senators, just over 8 minutes in ice time, and only had one shift in the third period. And so, I mean, could you make the argument that he didn't get enough of a runway this season to really try to establish himself? Maybe. But man, I think when you lose the trust of your head coach, like it seemed to happen here in Ottawa, it's really tough to get yourself established there. So I think I speak for all of us when we say, we're a fan of Christian Wolanin, the person, and hopefully he does well in Los Angeles.
Well, Kenny, and this is just it. Christian Wolanin is a great guy, and I think we all enjoy talking to him. But I think one of the issues he had here in Ottawa was, when he made a mistake, it got compounded by the fact that sometimes his partner or whoever else was on the ice got hung out to dry.
Well, that's part of it. I'm agreeing with Kyle. I mean, it's a catch-22. Do you want to play the guy more where he's prone to more mistakes, or then do you rely? We'll get into the whole Thomas Chabot playing too much. Whether he's playing too much. And there's a situation where it boils down to the coach not having to trust him in his situations. And the other factor I think weighs into it too is you've got Erik Brannstrom, who has been in and out of the lineup and up and down from the AHL, and it opens the door a little bit more for him, maybe not to be looking over his shoulder all the time. And as for the trade, it's a trading away. Amadio was in a similar situation in LA. He was a prospect at one point, sort of fell out of favor. Played sparingly this year, limited results, and so you're trading away contracts and problems, right? That maybe a new lease on life for both of them. Maybe something gets sparked, but I don't know about Amadio when you look at the Senators' forward depth with young players where he fits in. But you could say that about Clark Bishop, and he's taken advantage of his opportunity.
Well, and let's go to Thomas Chabot next, because Thomas Chabot's ice time to me seems to be almost a daily discussion. I thought that DJ Smith had an interesting answer about his ice time after their loss to Toronto Maple Leafs Thursday, when he made that mistake, Kyle, in saying that without Thomas Chabot, we don't get to overtime. What's your take on his ice time and what's made of his ice time?
Right. I mean, it's clear since DJ Smith has become coach in Ottawa, he leans on him heavily, right? Like led the league in ice time last season with 26. He's over 26 on average now this year, and right in the top three again. I think as a coach, you're not worried about the rebuild. You're not worried about all that in the moment. You're just trying to win the hockey game that's in front of you. And so for him, there's no question, the more Thomas Chabot plays, the better chance that the Senators have to win, because of how effective and efficient he is at breaking the puck out, and how he can get up and down the ice so effectively. So for him, between him and the rest of the coaching staff, I don't think they have a choice right now. And when you look at the six defensemen that are dressing every night, Mike Riley's had certainly a nice year. We've seen the emergence of Artem Zub coming over from Russia, but it's clear that Chabot is the guy that is leaned on most heavily. And so for the coaching staff and DJ Smith, they believe he's the guy that has to be on, for close to half the game, if not more, most nights, if they want an opportunity to win. And so, between that and guys like Christian Wolanin that aren't seeing a lot of ice time, Josh Brown, you go down the list from there, that maybe losing a bit of the trust, then number 72 gets relied upon even more so.
And Kenny, if you look at that game against the Leafs, where I think Chabot played 34 minutes or whatever it was, his mistake turns into the winning goal for the Leafs. And I think a lot of people look at that and say, well, that's fatigue.
Yeah, I got to give props, Bruce, to our editors. Catch 72 was a headline on a story written about this ice time situation, and I think that's what it is. If he doesn't play that kind of time in the third period, and there's a distrust of the third pairing, you probably don't get to overtime. And then in overtime, there's a few things that happened. That was probably, I think, a mistake of fatigue, but also there was a mistake earlier in that overtime with Dadonov going offside, and you wouldn't have even been in that situation. So there's mistakes made, no question. But I maybe you don't get the point in that game if Chabot doesn't play that time. Maybe this leads into our North Dakota discussion coming in here.
Don't go there, because that's where I'm going next.
Okay, well, take it away then.
Well, guys, I think that we all think if there's going to be a partner for Thomas Chabot, and I was kind of discussing this with Craig Button this morning. Jacob Bernard Docker, guys, looks from the University of North Dakota, their pick in 2018, one of their picks in 2018. Kyle, or maybe let's start with Ken, because you were going to go there. He looks like that fit, doesn't he?
Yeah, and I'm not going to say right away or immediately, whatever. I mean, it might take some seasoning here for how long it's going to get into a top pairing kind of role. But you slowly, gradually get him into that situation by playing him in a third pair and work him in. And I think what's also intriguing, and I'll take it another direction, is Jake Sanderson's a left side guy. And that's that situation they've been trying to find, you got Chabot, Riley playing the left side. Yeah. Is it Wolanin, Brandstrom? If Sanderson, I know he's got a big decision to make here, but I'm sure one of the decisions is saying, well, if that spot is open, boy, I have an opportunity perhaps to be in the NHL as soon as next year and get some big minutes. So I think in both cases, those guys, that's got to be weighing in all of the discussions here with management.
Well, and this is where we were going to go anyway. To me, Kyle, of that group, look, Pinto and Bernard Docker are coming out. It's just how they're going to come out. Are they going to come out? Are they going to sign PTOs and go to Belleville for the rest of the year, and then how their contracts kick in next year? My assumption would be that Bernard Docker wants to burn his year this year. Or are they going to come to the AHL team, burn a year, and then go to Belleville? Sanderson, to me, Kyle, has the most interesting decision to make. He's 18 years old. What do you think he should do?
Yeah, well, certainly. I know he's not looking at me for any advice, but it's interesting, Bruce. I mean, you asked the question to Josh Norris yesterday, right? And because he was another guy who went through that process playing at the University of Michigan, and it's not an easy one, right? Like you can look at it from the outside and think like, oh, an opportunity to go play for an NHL organization. Yeah, go right away. But there's so many more factors that all go into a decision like that. So, I mean, you look at some of the other defensemen in the league right now. Charlie McAvoy did 2 years. Cale Makar did 2 years. Yeah. Adam Fox in New York did 3 years at Harvard. So I think it's a situation where it comes down to, you're, as Ken mentioned, you're looking at the depth chart in Ottawa, and, could there be a fast track to getting an opportunity in the NHL if he leaves now? Certainly there could be, but I don't think, when you look at some of the other, as I mentioned, young defensemen around the league that have turned into, some really bright young stars, in quite quick succession, I don't think there's a harm in going back to a second year. I mean, we know what kind of, training ground and program they have at the University of North Dakota. It wouldn't hurt him, I think, in his development at all to go back for a second year. So it's going to come down to him, his family, his advisor, all the people that are part of his inner circle to decide what is best for him. I don't think there's a wrong decision at this point for him.
But the thing is, Kenny, I think speaking to what you said earlier, great point, is that he may look at this depth chart, and if he goes into Belleville, he's going to be their best defenseman, isn't he? And he's going to, the guy's got a great set of wheels, and he's going to skate right by Erik Brandstrom on the depth chart, isn't he?
I really look at that, and I can't, like you say, Kyle, we can't put ourselves in those skates and figure out what his decision is going to be. But I did talk to Brad Berry a few weeks ago before the crushing loss, and I know he wants to keep his star defenseman there, but he also said, look, in his mind, we don't want players going to the NHL unless they think they can legitimately crack that roster. Well, if I look at that big picture and I look at Jake Sanderson, I said he can legitimately crack that roster. So I really think you're right. No wrong decision here. And Cale Makar is a guy that probably had similar situation a few years ago, and when he did step in after 2 years, he was more than ready, right? He came into the playoffs and dominated in the playoffs right away. So there's that factor, and Sanderson would also be the leader on that North Dakota team next year if he stayed.
Okay, before we go, let's wrap with the no discussion on this panel is complete without talking about the goaltenders. And Kyle, there was an interesting, I don't know if you changed to the mix yesterday when Matt Murray was on the ice for practice. He's at least a week away from playing. Marcus Högberg remains in Belleville right now. My belief is he'll play against the Marlies on the weekend. At some point, they're going to have to make some decisions on these guys. And this is a discussion that is being had. Or if we're all around a water cooler right now, we'd be having this discussion. Who would you protect in the expansion draft at this point? And I'm going to put both of you on the spot. Let's start with you, Kyle.
Man, it's tough for me. I think between, you got Joey Decord would be one of those guys because he came in and burned the first year of his deal at the end of the 18-19 season. I would seriously consider him, but it's tough because it's been a really small sample size between him and Philip Gustafsson at the NHL level. But it was clear heading into this year that I think the organization saw Decord ahead of Gus. And so maybe that's where you lean. I think the fact that, Matt Murray has struggled this year and you look at his contract, I think that in and of itself is like built-in expansion draft protection right there. So I don't know if you have to worry about him per se. For me, I'm going to go Decord if you're putting me on the spot, Bruce.
Before you chime in, Ken, I am going to say to you one thing before you chime in is there any chance that Seattle looks at, if Matt Murray's available, do they say, Marc-Andre Fleury went to Vegas and did a pretty good job. Is there any chance they say that? Now go ahead.
I just think there'll be too many goalies out there at a better price. And given if Matt Murray had a stronger first half of the season, then maybe. But I mean, right now there's a lot of question marks. I mean, maybe if he turns it on in the last when he comes back, but I'd say no. And it does boil down to Decord and Gustafsson. And I just wonder whether Decord's high ankle sprain is something that a team might go, whoa, we're not quite sure here because he'd be coming off an injury. So then you weigh, do you protect Gustafsson over Decord? And I don't think Högberg is the guy. Högberg, we're not quite sure how to say his name.
Hoggy.
Even this many years later, I'm not sure, given his year, that you bother protecting him. So I'm going to go the other way and say you protect Gustafsson just because of Decord's injury.
Well, I am with Kyle on this one. I'm going to take Decord on this one too. Listen, Kyle, thanks for joining us. That's the Post Media Senators panel with Ken Warren in Ottawa. I'm Bruce Garrioch.